Star Trek 4 loses its director to Fantastic Four. Now that marks 4 directors this film has lost. Yes, if you're excited for the Star Trek 4, the 4th film in the what's called the Kelvin timeline, created by J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot way back when, in 2009, then I'm afraid you're in for a huge amount of disappointment, or maybe you should count your blessings. But director Matt Shakman was named to be the latest director to take on this movie. They made a big announcement about it. Problem was, the cast, you know, Chris Pine and the guys and gals, said, hey, we hadn't heard one word about this. No script, nothing. So that was rather embarrassing. And to me, that was one of the first signs of the evaporation of Bad Robot's power. Because J.J. Abrams attached his name to this, that he would produce it and all this stuff. And it didn't fall in line. You know? Now, initially, Pine and certainly Hemsworth were balking at the idea that they were asking them to take a pay cut to do the film because they couldn't garner the money, and certainly they had lost a lot of investors and whatnot because after Star Trek Beyond, Star Trek Into Darkness ruined the franchise, and Star Trek Beyond, it's not a great movie. It's pretty bad, more or less kind of stupid, but Star Trek Into Darkness was so god awful. That was it. Everyone really turned on it, and it's too bad because the cast was pretty good. And it seems like you could have had something, but you know. That's the problem. They didn't have anything, no story or anything, and so that was that. So they kept trying to get the gang back together and go again, but you know they didn't have the money for stars. Certainly not Chris Hemsworth. He went on to be Thor and everything, and Pine has become a star on his own. And so he's like, "Yeah, no, you got to pay me what I'm worth." So that's the way that went. So then they went through a series of directors. I remember there was some lady, I can't remember her name. She was supposed to do it, and that fell through. Then they started chasing after Quentin Tarantino for a while, and that was going to be something else. They just were so desperate to get his name involved, even if I don't even know if he would have been the director, or if he just would have produced it, or what have you. And even to the point that he was talking about it in interviews and says, I don't really understand this alternate timeline stuff. And then J.J. Abrams says, it doesn't matter. I don't even understand. He just wanted him to do something so they could put his name on it. And that fell through. Then there was Noah Hawley, who did the Legion show and all that. And apparently that sounded pretty serious. He had pitched that idea, and it got rejected for being too Star Trek-y. So it's too much like Star Trek, so they didn't want it. And I think that would have been a totally new cast and all this type of thing. And so that fell through. Then everything kind of went quiet for a while, and then there was this announcement, and J.J. Abrams stepped forward. Yes, I'm going to produce a new Star Trek film, and they hired Matt Shakman to be the director. And then not long after that, the cast, of course, said, news to me. And so, whoops. So, hadn't heard anything else new about it. This was supposed to get underway pretty much now. You know. And Shakman's got this deal with Fantastic Four. And the number 4 directors, at least as far as I can tell. Maybe there was a couple of more, I don't know. And Star Trek 4. And now he's leaving it all for Fantastic Four, which is, of course, far more likely, if not already a done deal, I would think, a film project that will get underway, whereas this, probably not. Maybe there'll be a Star Trek movie at some point. It probably won't have anything to do with this version of it, because the clock's ticking on that. And this is just another example of the power of Bad Robot quickly evaporating. Um, it begins with the embarrassment there of J.J. Abrams putting his name on that project, and then the cast coming out and saying, making it obvious that it seems to be a bit fraudulent in the idea that they keep making these announcements in order to inspire or encourage investment into these projects. When that didn't happen in the past, I don't see why they would think this would. And it's one after another. So Warner Brothers is, irritated with him and all this sort of stuff. And just recently, the Cape Crusader cartoon. They're going to shop it around and everything. But the embarrassment of that means that he doesn't have the pull he used to. And what comes around goes around. And really, for J.J. Abrams, in my humble opinion, he hasn't really produced anything of any quality since the 2009 Star Trek movie, which has its problems and stuff, but it's a fun film. The cast is good. The other two films, even with that cast, but the stories were so bad, especially the second one, just awful. And so that was that. And then, of course, the whole mess with Star Wars, which is not completely his fault, but he made his contributions to that stupidity. And then just on and on with cheap, lackluster plots, shielded by identity politics and all that nonsense. And he's got nothing to show for himself at this point. And eventually, the road ran out. And so I think that's, this is really the beginning of the end for this group as being seen as these, miracle workers for films and whatnot. Because it's a lie. It's not really there. There's not a whole lot of genius, talent, or what have you. It's well deserved because of the things that have happened. And really, it's a lot of fraud in some of this instance, especially this business with Warner Brothers and the sign-on, and then don't produce anything, and some years wasted when they could have moved on with other projects, but they had to hold it for J.J. Abrams was going to come in and do something wonderful, and he had nothing. So that kind of thing. So well-deserved there. But for Star Trek, it's best that this come to an end as soon as possible, because Star Trek has no chance whatsoever as long as it's in the hands of Bad Robot and their subsidiary Secret Hideout. If they could get out of that contract, and then it would take some time too, because I think that the brand is terribly damaged by these god-awful shows they produced for PP, the Paramount Network. Originally CBS All Ass. If it was so successful, why did they have to change it? The damage there, it's probably going to need to rest a while. But then again, maybe the announcement of a new team that takes over, specifically some proven talent, could be attached to it. Perhaps that would garner some interest. And you just got to scrap everything that's happened, the years wasted on these Star Trek projects, and start over. And that's the best you can hope for. And so there's kind of a silver lining in all this. I'm extremely dubious we'll ever see another film in this version of it. And the only unfortunate aspect of that is that I really like this cast. I thought that they were really good, and I wouldn't have minded seeing that. I would have preferred in someone else's hands, take a crack at it. But the clock's ticking. It's really time to move on, especially by now. I'm guessing the ages of them, they would have to be like in the movie versions of the original cast. So maybe like the motion picture era. That might have been an interesting thing to explore, that what Starfleet was like in that era that only got one movie, but anyway, it's not happening. I just really don't think so. And I think Bad Robot is in deep trouble, and they've no one to blame but themselves. So anyway, there you go. There's kind of a bright spot there for Star Trek, because as long as they're attached to that idiot company, they continue to spiral down the toilet bowl. And that's not good. No, it's not. So I'm sure it's going to take a while, but they're hopefully could be some opportunity for Star Trek to make a comeback, but not anytime soon.